Welcome to Kick 'em in the Head, a podcast that takes an inside look at the world of mixed martial arts, featuring interviews with some of the top fighters from South Africa and around the world, with a focus on the EFC and UFC promotions. I'm your host, Yao. Join us as we delve deep into the techniques, strategies, and mindsets of these world-class athletes, learning from their experiences and gaining insights into what it takes to succeed in the toughest sport on earth. Good morning, Preggy. How are you doing today?
Hey, awesome, man. How are you doing?
Fantastic, thank you. So
Good.
you were recently at the IMMAF Championships out in Albania. So how was that? Because I mean, you've gone all the way to another continent to officiate in MMA, and I'm pretty sure it's an absolutely different world from what you're experiencing in South Africa. So tell us more about your experience at the IMMAF competition.
It was really good. There were like 46 countries with almost 400 athletes. We had 6 days of tournament. There were 3 cages, so it was quite a big event. It was really good. Weather was a bit chilly. Albania is a beautiful city. It's just in between Greece and Italy, and yeah, we had a really good time. Obviously, when you go for these things, you get fighted out. I mean, we've done so many fights. I mean, per day we're doing like average of 35 fights a cage. So it was really crazy, but it was good. It was nice. I mean, this is the only time you have like so much of fights. You never have. I mean, some people don't even have that amount of fights in the entire year that you participate in one event.
So with all that action happening around, I mean, 400 fighters is a lot. What were the highlights that you actually experienced from the event and from the fights? And I think what was your biggest highlight of your experience there?
Funny enough, my biggest highlight in that my experience was the food out there. The food was really good. Lots of nice fine dining and all of that. But yeah, in terms of the event, it's always every part of it is mind blowing and fascinating. The standard is super high. I mean, a lot of these ex athletes end up going into international promotions like UFC, Bellator, and the top promotions in the world. So every year, whichever athletes part ways with IMMAF, I mean, decide to go pro, generally get up into the best platforms in the world for pro events. So that was good. Standards extremely high. The athletes predominantly, the skill sets are mostly like wrestling based, and yeah, they're about. So that's where we're looking at, mostly wrestling based. Jits, the basic stuff that you do, that's happening. Yeah, so I think that fascinated me more is the quality of the grappling and wrestling.
That's quite interesting because if we look at the South African context and I guess where we ply our trade, there's not that much wrestling specifically that you see. We see a lot of jits in SA and a lot of stand-up. Our stand-up is phenomenal. So it's quite interesting that when you go international, it's really the wrestling that takes precedence. And where it comes to the food, with food as well, it's quite important because nutrition, where it comes to being an athlete and fighting, is also very important. So it's good to hear that that was something that was also taken care of at the event.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I think seems like with us, maybe the coaches are doing really good, really good. Wrestling, I think, should be looked at more because that's the tone of the language of all the athletes out there. They go straight, they engage, they take you down, trap you against a cage, and then they work their magic with the ground and pound, but predominantly holding you down with wrestling. So
from a refereeing standpoint, were there any differences in how you ref at that level and how you ref at the local level? Because this is obviously an international competition.
Not at all. Our referees are very highly rated and regarded over there. We had, let me just count, Ferdy, myself, Bobby, Charles, and Querbus from South Africa. And then there was a former South African, Natasha Brits. She's now in the Netherlands, that was always also there. And we actually very highly regarded in terms of officiating in the international scene. I'm like considered a senior official. Ferdy was doing courses as well, so he was one of three guys that were doing the international courses for the novice guys and the refreshers. So we are really highly considered.
Okay, no, that's amazing because obviously when you think about reffing at the highest standards, you obviously normally think of your UFC refs. But like you said, you guys actually engage them. You guys are trained. You guys have certification in reffing. So having you guys at that level, having the pedigree, it's phenomenal to see you guys out there. Is there anything you actually learned on this specific trip at this tournament from a refereeing standpoint that you feel has expanded your knowledge and skills within the refereeing space?
When I did the refresher, in terms of reffing, the thing is, that comes with time. I know we touched on the last time that, where you stand and if you don't trip and get knocked out and all of that. Remember, I was just teasing about it. But generally, in terms of reffing, uh, just the opportunity there to be in so many of the bouts, and then you always constantly ask your cage mates or your cage leaders, was I okay? Did I miss anything? Whenever I walk off a cage, I always cross check, and then like these guys were saying, when you're reffing, some of the refs become too jittery or like anticipate things and stuff like that. So it's just something that you should hear. But I mean, generally myself, I was okay. There was not much issues that I picked up on reffing. But in terms of judging, we did a refresher with Guillermo Bravo. He's a former UFC ref, judge, and he mentioned, or it was thrown out there that the judges weight grappling and stand up and wrestling, grappling and stand up. Like your base for judging is striking and grappling. So the technique needs to relate evenly in terms of what you are evaluating. So sometimes people from a stand-up background will wait or will score a stand-up engagement more than a grappling engagement, which obviously has equal impact. So this gave us a little bit more insight to evaluate and assess when you're scoring the balance between those two. So that was a nice uh, eye opener, refresher. So
I think that's interesting, and obviously I've forgotten to even ask about the judging side of it because that's part of what you do in officiating as well. But that's quite interesting because a lot of times when you're not an official, like myself, you're someone who's just watching. It's always very difficult, or when you get when it goes to the judges and you see the scorecard and you wonder, but how did they come about getting this? So it's quite interesting to hear that that definitely has an influence on how the bouts are scored, and that we can actually learn to see which one weights more upon which. So from your experience there, has that now expanded how you look at it in terms of how you weight your fights when you're judging?
yeah, it did. It actually clarified or took out the mist out of the glass. So now you can see a bit clear. And the thing is, you're always learning all the time. So yeah, definitely it did.
No, amazing. Preggy, thank you so much for the time. It's been really interesting to hear all the things that you learned out in Albania. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on Thursday because on Thursday, we obviously have EFC 110, the big one for the year.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Looking forward
Yeah,
to that.
there's three title fights. I mean, when was the last time we had three title fights in any event?
No, definitely. So that's a good one to look forward to. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Preggy.
No, it's a pleasure. Catch up
Look
soon.
forward to speaking to you again, definitely.
100%.
Cheers.
Take care.